the integral mind. Is it possible to have an integral, unitotal mind, undivided by the process of choice, undivided by the process of conceptual selection, an unconditional mind, a mind free of preconceptions, prejudices, and fears? Yes, it is possible. But in truth, one would need to annihilate the psychic, or undesirable, elements that we carry within us. Does Gnosis have a system to annihilate these elements? Yes, it does. Which one? We should start with psychological self-observation. Do you accept that you have a psyche and a psychology? Or do you believe that you only have a physical body, without any psychic principle? This would be impossible, as parapsychology has demonstrated the psychological processes present in any organism and has experimental methods for demonstration. Parapsychology encompasses the theory of quanta, hypnology, intentional extrasensory perceptions, extracerebral reasoning processes, and so on. With manifest evidence, as it obviously has experimental laboratories, parapsychology is revolutionizing the world. In Soviet Russia itself, where materialist dialectics has served as the foundation for all intellectual reasoning processes of the citizens of the USSR, at this very moment, according to statistics, it has reached the highest index of parapsychological didactic production, which is why materialist dialectics is being relegated as outdated and out of touch. We ourselves, in the West, have entered the era of psychology and electronics, the era of energy and its study in all its manifestations. We have moved from merely materialist concerns to the study of energy. So, in reality, there are methods that allow us to integrate the mind, to make it unitotal. That is why I say that psychotronics has a wonderful future. Through psychological self-observation, we can discover our defects. It is worth noting that each of them is represented by some psychic aggregate. When one lives alert and vigilant, like a sentinel in wartime, when one psychologically self-observes, moment by moment, one can self-discover. It is undeniable that, in interaction, hidden defects spontaneously surface, and if we are alert, then we see them. A discovered defect must be analyzed analytically if we want to disintegrate it atomically. This is precisely where transactional analysis and structural analysis come into play. Upon discovering a psychological defect within oneself, we must analyze it structurally, using, of course, the scalpel of self-criticism. The analysis of psychological or parapsychological structures becomes necessary. For example, what is the psychological structure of any given aggregate, whether it is anger, greed, lust, envy, pride, laziness, or gluttony? One must observe it. How does it behave in the intellectual center? What are its reasonings? How does it proceed in the heart center, that is, the emotional center? What would its feelings or emotions be? How is it characterized in the motor instinctual sexual center? Structural analysis will allow us to perfectly understand the structures of any discovered psychic aggregate in action. Once these structures have been properly understood, we then move on to transactional analysis. Just as there are bank transactions, commercial transactions, etc., so too there are psychological transactions. How would this or that aggregate, once discovered, behave in relation to other aggregates within our psyche? For example, if it is an aggregate of anger, how would this aggregate act? What would be its mode of behavior in relation to the other aggregates we have inside? Greed, lust, laziness, envy, pride, gluttony, etc.? With which other aggregates would it associate? Perhaps with greed? In this case, we would have a greedy, angry individual manifesting. Or perhaps with envy? In this other case, we would have an envious, angry individual. And if it is with lust? Then, it would be a choleric sexual self. Transactional analysis is unavoidable when one wants to understand any psychic aggregate. Undoubtedly, structural and transactional analyses allow us to fully understand any aggregate. Once such or such aggregate is understood, we must appeal to that transcendent and transcendental fohat cited by the Indian yogis. I am emphatically referring to Kundalini Shakti. Medieval alchemists referred to this phohatic power with the mystical name of Stella Maris. It was also allegorized in past religions as Isis Morena in ancient Egypt, whom no mortal has lifted the veil, or as Tonantzin in our Mexican land, or as Casta Diana among the Greeks, or as Aria in the north of Mecca, or as Sabellis in the island of Crete, or as Maria or Mara, the eternal feminine, among the Gnostics of early Christianity. The Nahuatl people did not ignore the existence of that phohat. Let us remember that the civilizations of pre-Columbian America were serpentine, and that phohat is precisely the igneous serpent of our magical powers, which lies dormant in all organic and inorganic matter. If we concentrate on that phohat, pleading for a response, imploring action, you can be sure that it would not delay, and Kundalini Shakti, as the yogis call it, would destroy the psychic aggregate in question, reducing it to cosmic dust. However, it is worth stating that it is necessary, first, to separate any aggregate before its total dissolution. If we proceed correctly, we can then disintegrate didactically and dialectically the entire set of undesirable elements within which the mind is trapped. By breaking these elements and sub-elements, we can free the mind. This is how, in reality, we will come to possess an integral, unitotal, individual mind. Anyone who possesses such a unitotal mind is, in fact, a mutant. Within the mind, there is a reserve of natural cosmic intelligence that we must use. The values of intelligence are deposited in the mind, but we must make a clear distinction between what is the mind and what is intelligence. In truth, it would not be possible to free the mind without first studying and understanding its various mechanisms. Extraordinary parapsychological phenomena are achieved when one has an integral mind. A scattered mind will never be able to produce extraordinary parapsychological phenomena. When speaking of parapsychology, it is first necessary to speak of the mind. Many believe they possess a free mind, that they are masters of their own mind, and they are mistaken. It is absurd to assume that one has a free mind when it is, in and of itself, trapped within the multiplicity of psychic aggregates that we possess. We need to liberate it, and this is only possible by breaking the psychic aggregates. As I have already mentioned, the mind contains the cosmic reserve of intelligence, but it is not possible to use this reserve when the mind is scattered. First of all, it is urgent to integrate it. If someone manages to integrate the mind, they will be able to wisely use the intelligent values contained within it. Thus, in reality, intelligence is a universal principle deposited in any mechanical function. Universal mechanics would be inconceivable without intelligent values or intelligent principles. I mentioned in another talk, and I repeat it now, that there are three defined psychological aspects: identity, values, and image. Each of us has these three aspects. There is identity, values, and image in a positive form, and identity, values, and image in a negative form. Identity, values, and image can be seen in a mutant. The values of a mutant are real. The values of those who still have their minds trapped among various psychic aggregates are mediocre. Thus, there are two kinds of people, those with a scattered mind and those with a concentrated mind. This is evident. Obviously, those who have already disintegrated the psychic aggregates possess strictly divine cosmic values, these are the mutants. But those who have not disintegrated the psychic aggregates have a trapped, conditioned mind, and their values are negative. That is why it is well worth disintegrating the undesirable psychic elements to free the mind. If this is achieved, the reserve of intelligence will express itself through us, and we will think like true mutants. In the name of truth, it is worth saying clearly that the mind is a wonderful instrument when it is integrated. These days, there is much talk about mental dynamics. Some believe that activating the mind in its current condition can turn us into superhumans. Certainly, those who claim this are unaware that the mind is trapped in the multiplicity of inhuman psychic aggregates that we carry within. How could true mental dynamics exist when the mind is trapped? Mental dynamics are possible, but only for a mind that is emancipated, integrated, individualized, perfect. The various existing pedagogical systems in the world are already outdated. What is needed now is a new pedagogical system that allows us to update or become aware of the knowledge deposited in the mind. I have already said that the mind contains a reserve of intelligence. It is worth clarifying that we possess much knowledge of which we are unaware, and it is latent in that reserve of intelligence. The pedagogical systems of the future should aim to make us aware of certain knowledge latent in the mind.